So good morning, everyone. As we will be running the election for the chair and vice chair, I'll just start off and get this meeting going. So we are live on YouTube today, and I've taken the roll call as well. So the first item is to receive nominations for the position of chair. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Mayor Davis.
Mayor Davis, would you like to take that, or would you like seek a second nomination?
I certainly don't want to stand in the way of anybody else that might want to do it. But I'd be happy to take it on, given, over the next, I think, 12 months, this will be an important task for us. Hopefully it has, a short shelf life too.
I'll second the nomination.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, seeing none, so Mayor Davis is acclaimed as the position of chair. And any nominations for the position of vice chair?
I nominate Councillor Wall.
And Councillor Wall, do you accept?
I do accept.
Okay, any other nominations for the position of chair? Councillor Carpenter?
I nominate Councillor Utley.
Councillor Utley? Would you accept
I'd be
that?
very happy. I'd be very happy, but yeah.
So would you like to go to a vote for the position of vice chair?
Do you know, right now I'm going to decline. Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. With all that I've got going on right now, the timing just isn't right for me. So thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. Any further nominations? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Wall is acclaimed as vice chair. And Mayor Davis, I'll hand it over to you. Were you able to get a copy of the chair's roadmap that was provided?
No.
Okay, would you like me to read off the rules in regards to the electronic meetings?
I think I've got them memorized.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Julius. You've taken the roll call. Before I do that, any declarations of conflict of interest? Raise your hand. Not seeing any. So the rules are the same as they always are for these virtual meetings. Please leave your video connection on so you count as quorum. If we do in fact lose quorum, we immediately recess, but we'll try and establish quorum within 15 minutes. If we don't, then the meeting's automatically adjourned. Please leave your mute button on. Please mute yourself throughout so we don't get feedback. If you want to speak, I think with this small group, we can just use the physically raised hands because it's easy to see everybody. And if we need staff, of course, we'll bring them in to answer any questions if ever do have a delegation presentation coming up. And if members of the public wish to address us, they can do so by contacting the clerk's office. So I think that's pretty much it. So we'll move then to delegations. I don't believe we have any delegations, Julia. I believe that's correct, right?
That's correct. No delegations.
So we'll move into items for consideration, and that is the presentation in respect to the City of Brantford official plan, envisioning our city. And I understand we have Alan Waterfield, Senior Planner, Nicole Wilmot, Manager of Long Range Planning, and they'll provide us with presentation. And of course, I think they know that it's limited to 10 minutes, inclusive of questions.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, they did request that waiving of the rules as their presentation is 17 minutes. And it was in the chair's roadmap for a consensus, if that's okay. If not, we can, if nobody wants to move that, then.
Well, I'll tell you, thank you. I'll tell you what, Julia, I'm going to suggest that we proceed and we put a time limit, let's say of 20 minutes on it. And that if anybody has a problem with that, raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll just move forward by consensus. I don't see any raised hands, so let's proceed, Julia. 20 minutes, Alan and Nicole, inclusive of questions.
Thank you, Mary Davis. We'll just wait 1 second for Alan to bring the presentation up and share his screen. Excellent, thank you. So myself and Alan are very happy to be here this morning to present to the Boundary Lands Task Force as part of our final round of consultation to bring before Council the new official plan, Envisioning Our City 2051, which was released in October for a final public review period. This plan has been prepared through the ongoing official plan review process and provides a contemporary vision and policy framework to guide growth in the city to 2051. It's important to note that this is a brand new official plan, and once approved, will fully replace the current OP. The official plan sets the community's vision and goals for the future. It ensures that new development and growth considers a broad range of interests and perspectives, and that land use planning decisions reflect local values. The current official plan was approved in 1987, when the city's population was less than 80,000 people. Over the horizon of this plan, our population and our economy is expected to grow to more than double, to approximately 165,000 people and 80,000 jobs. So it's important that we have a clear vision for the future growth of the city and a policy framework to guide the city's physical development. As the city's overarching policy document, the new official plan reflects updated provincial policy, such as the growth plan and the provincial policy statement, which the OP is required to implement. In addition to a broad staff technical team to support the preparation of a new official plan and to complete the necessary technical analysis in accordance with the municipal comprehensive review process, an extensive consultation team was assembled, which includes the following firms and disciplines that are shown on the right-hand side of the screen. The official plan review began in 2013 and was briefly put on hold in 2016 as a result of several provincial policy changes and the ongoing municipal boundary negotiations between the City of Brantford and the County of Brant. With minister approval in 2017 of the boundary adjustment, which added 2,700 hectares of land intended to accommodate growth, we resumed the official plan review. Since 2017, we have held more than 10 public consultation opportunities and have had additional meetings with First Nations, with property owners and their agents, with advisory committees and stakeholders groups, as well as held an industry workshop to inform the new block planning process, which will affect the boundary expansion lands, and we'll speak more about that later in the presentation. This has led to the release of the first draft of the OP to internal departments back in January of 2020. Followed by the issuance of a revised draft released in June of this year. Based on public input, planning staff issued the current draft in October, and we will continue to refine the draft OP to address comments from provincial ministries and the public at the open house that we had last night. We will present the new official plan to Council for consideration at a special committee of the whole meeting for community development on November the 19th. Just to briefly recap, the Boundary Lands Task Force has met on two separate occasions with respect to the official plan. In March of 2019, we met to present the preferred settlement area expansion, which was based on the land needs assessment and determined how much land was needed to meet growth forecasts, which have recently been updated by the province, which Alan will speak about later. And then also we met to review the Part 2 report, which evaluated the boundary expansion lands to determine the amount of land and the lands to be included in the settlement area. At the time, the Boundary Lands Task Force supported the preferred settlement area expansion, which was later endorsed by Council in April of 2019. We then met in July of 2019 as a result of changes to the provincial growth plan, specifically to the density and intensification targets for the city. And the Boundary Lands Task Force moved to maintain the existing endorsed targets and proceeded with finalizing the OP based on those targets. So I'll now turn it over to Alan to review the key growth management assumptions and the main components of the official plan.
Thank you, Nicole. The city is going to grow to include 165,000 residents and 80,000 jobs by the year 2051. That's based on the recently updated growth forecast set in the province's growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. We did have to make some changes to the June 2020 draft to account for that new growth forecast, which extended the planning horizon from 2041 to 2051 and added 2,000 more residents and 1,000 more jobs to account for. The revised forecasts and a new land needs assessment methodology that was released by the province at the end of August also impacted the city's land needs, increasing by 95 hectares the recommended settlement area boundary that was endorsed by council back in April of 2019. The revised land needs are set out in an addendum report to the Municipal Comprehensive Review that was prepared. So this map shows in yellow the 460 hectares of residential community area that was included in the June draft. And that's been increased by 34 hectares that's been applied in the northeast in the orange color on the north side of Powerline Road. This map also shows in pink the 336 hectares of employment area that were included in the June draft. And those have been increased by 61 hectares in the darker purple color in the northwest to the west of Gulf Road. The lands outside of the settlement area boundary, which appear in white on this map, are not required to meet the city's population and employment forecasts that are accounted for in the new official plan. These areas cannot be developed for urban uses, therefore, and will remain as agricultural areas until the city's land needs change in the future. The rationale for where the settlement area was expanded is based on the land evaluation that was contained in the Municipal Comprehensive Review reports. They had evaluated 11 blocks for potential residential and community uses, which appear in yellow here, as well as 7 blocks for potential employment areas, shown in blue on this map. The evaluation did not consider the trigger lands, colored in brown, as the trigger lands were identified as the last priority for expansion in the Municipal Boundary Adjustment Agreement between the city and the County of Brant, and they're not needed to accommodate either the 2041 or the 2051 growth forecasts. The land evaluation applied a range of assessment criteria to identify the most preferred blocks. The report assembled the various blocks into 2 options that were considered for settlement area expansion. Those options did not include blocks C3 or C9 due to their environmental characteristics and servicing challenges compared to the other blocks. So the settlement area that's now contained in the updated official plan includes the whole of block C8, which had been only partly been within the settlement area expansion that was included in the June draft. That area continues to be preferred from a servicing, agricultural, and environmental perspective. So to accommodate the growth forecast, the new official plan establishes an urban structure that's comprised of neighborhoods, strategic growth areas, and employment areas that are framed by core natural areas that are to be protected, with the rural agricultural areas remaining outside of the settlement area. Over 29,000 housing units will be required to accommodate the additional population. Over 14,000 of those will occur within the built-up area to achieve the intensification target that's been established in the new official plan. Those units will be primarily located within the strategic growth areas. That includes the downtown urban growth center, the intensification corridors designation, and the major commercial center nodes. Over 15,000 units will be located in the designated greenfield area, or DGA. They'll be split between the remaining opportunities in the existing DGA, as well as new development in the expansion lands. In regard to the density target for the DGA, we had to recognize that some lands within the DGA have already been developed at low densities, particularly in Tutela Heights, for example, such that density targets of either 55 or 60 residents and jobs combined per hectare are required over specific areas. And that's so we can achieve the new target of 52 residents and jobs per hectare that has to be measured across the entire DGA. So a greater percentage of future residential development in Brantford will need to be in townhouse form or additional accessory apartment units and apartments rather than the ratio that's typically been built in the past. The new streamlined official plan consolidated 15 land use designations down to 9 and added the agricultural designation. So displayed on this screen is Schedule 3, which illustrates the land use designations. The new official plan has a focus on built form and compatibility in design versus density and unit counts. The residential designation within the neighborhoods permits a variety of uses to facilitate development of complete communities. So that includes allowing small neighborhood supporting land uses such as convenience, commercial, and small scale institutions within neighborhoods. Low, mid, and high-rise buildings, as well as the mix of uses, are to be located based on policy criteria that's established in the new official plan. In addition, there are subcategories within the residential designation that are applied within the expansion lands. And their purpose is to provide some additional policy guidance to implement the land use concepts that were prepared during the municipal comprehensive review. Those subcategories are identified on Schedule 4, which is displayed here. They include the neighborhood centers and corridors, which are illustrated in pink. You can see running east-west across the northern expansion lands. And they're to provide a corridor of focus for denser mixed-use developments within the expansion lands. And the Urban Design Manual provides some additional guidance with respect to the vision for that corridor. The suburban residential and transitional residential categories are found in Tootle Heights, and their purpose is to ensure that future development fits in with the low density character that exists in that area. Other designations include parks and open space, which are to be developed in accordance with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The major institutional designation's been streamlined, so minor institutions such as elementary schools, again, are permitted in the residential designation. Major institutions include things like the hospital, police station, and secondary schools, institutions that serve a broader, often regional area. The downtown urban growth center is divided into 3 specific precincts to recognize the different character of those 3 precincts. That includes the historic main streets along Colburn and Dalhousie Street, the lower downtown beneath it, as well as the upper downtown. The major commercial center and intensification corridor designations are intended to transition to mixed use areas that will accommodate residential growth as well as commercial developments. The employment area is divided into 2 designations, the prestige employment and general employment designations. And that's where manufacturing, warehousing, and limited office and ancillary commercial uses will be permitted. No residential development is permitted in employment areas. The new agricultural designation includes policies that will support the agricultural system and limit new lot creation within the agricultural area. And finally, the protected core natural areas designation is surrounded by a 90-meter adjacent lands overlay, and that's to advise when an environmental impact study may be required to ensure that proposed development does not negatively impact environmental features. The official plan includes policies that support the implementation of the Master Servicing Plan and the Transportation Master Plan. All development within the settlement area is to be on full municipal services, although there are some areas of existing private services and those are recognized. The official plan coordinates with the transportation network improvements and enhanced transit that's set out in the Transportation Master Plan. It includes a schedule of right-of-way widenings to enable the city to acquire those during the development process. In addition to the official plan, a supporting document was released called the Infrastructure Staging Report. It provides a summary of the municipal servicing and transportation infrastructure requirements and prerequisites in the expansion lands. So that will serve as a reference for future development proponents. Now I'll turn the presentation back to Nicole so she can highlight some other features of the new official plan, including the new block plan process.
Thanks, Alan. To support the implementation of the new official plan, we've introduced new policy for block plans and prepared a draft block plan terms of reference released concurrently with the draft OP. To ensure a coordinated approach to growth in the expansion lands, the city will require comprehensive block plans to be prepared by landowners and submitted to the city in accordance with the block plan areas identified on Schedule 2 in the new official plan. The city has identified 8 block plan areas, 5 in the North Expansion lands and 3 in Tootla Heights, and will require the approval of block plans prior to the acceptance of development applications. The block planning process is only applicable to the community lands, which are shown in yellow, and not for the employment lands. This is mainly due to the fact that employment lands tend to develop for a single use, that being employment, and as such, don't require the same degree of coordination as planning for the community lands. This is a new process for the city of Brantford, and it's intended to promote comprehensive development for the entirety of the block plan areas and to ensure the alignment of future draft plans of subdivision applications, particularly in areas where there are multiple landowners. To help inform the planning process and submission requirements, planning staff held an industry workshop in September, which included planners, engineers, and consultants with experience in preparing block plans in various communities. Through this collaborative approach, we were able to gather practical input on the process, which resulted in some improved changes to the final draft terms of reference. The purpose of the block plan is to confirm the land use and proposed density distributions, the boundaries of the natural heritage system supported through an EIS, and to identify the location for parks and other community benefits, and to establish the high-level servicing strategy and infrastructure connections to adjacent properties from both a servicing and transportation perspective. So as noted, to support the block planning process, we prepared a draft terms of reference, which outlines the minimum standards for the preparation of block plan applications. However, proponents of development can drive the process, and they may submit more detailed studies to assist staff in the review of these plans and to potentially expedite the subsequent draft plan applications. Given that no 2 block plan areas are the same, submission requirements may also be scoped in consultation with the city. So just to wrap up here, looking in terms of next steps towards implementation. Once the new official plan has been adopted by council, it will be submitted within 15 days to the province for approval by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. A decision is to be issued within 120 days after the official plan and the supporting documents are received. The province has several options here. They may approve the official plan as it's submitted. They may request changes be made to it and modify and approve or modify and approve the modified official plan. The minister's decision is final, and there is no appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal when the approval authority is the minister. The city could appeal a non-decision if the 120 days time period lapses, but that appeal could also open up to other parties. Lastly, the new official plan must be reviewed no later than 10 years after it comes into effect, and every 5 years thereafter until it is replaced by another new official plan. The new official plan may be reviewed and amended more frequently to ensure that it continues to conform with provincial policies, legislation and regulations, and plans such as the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Once the new official plan has been granted final approval, planning staff will begin work towards completing a new comprehensive zoning bylaw that must conform to the new official plan within a 3-year timeframe set out by the Planning Act. Planning staff will be reporting back to council to commence the preparation of a new comprehensive zoning bylaw to replace the City of Brantford's current zoning bylaw and County of Brant bylaw. That applies to the expansion lands as it relates to the municipal boundary expansion lands. And that concludes our presentation. And I should note, sorry, that we will be reporting back on the comprehensive zoning bylaw within the first quarter of next year. So that concludes our presentation, and myself and Alan will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Carpenter, go ahead.
Yes, could you, I didn't understand the rationale or accept it, that block C9 is why is it left out? And please clarify, are services not available right at that corner of the city? In fact, via pumping stations or sewer connections?
There are sewer connections at Powerline Road and Colbeck Road. That's the main connection that will go up into the expansion lands to the north side of Powerline Road. Block C9 was considered in the evaluation that was conducted through the Municipal Comprehensive Review. Again, we looked at 11 different blocks throughout the expansion lands based on that analysis, that was one of the relatively lower ranked blocks, and it wasn't carried forward into either of the options that Council considered when the settlement area was endorsed back in April of 2019. So the primary reasons for that, based on the evaluation criteria that was included in that analysis, looked at things like environmental issues, agricultural issues, archaeology, land use. It's primarily due to the rolling topography of that area, and the water courses running through it just has more environmental constraints than some of the other lands that were ranked higher, such as properties on the north side of Powerline Road. And it also, because of the rolling topography, has greater servicing challenges, again, relative to the other blocks and areas that were ranked higher and that were carried forward into the options that were considered.
But that land is contiguous already to a residential development settlement area that's built up in the city already. And isn't that, you did mention the cost.
Sorry, Councillor Carpenter, we've gone beyond 20 minutes, but I think I've got a solution. So, Julia, we don't have in the roadmap that a motion to receive, but if the report or the presentation, but if we had such a motion, that would give each member 2 speaking opportunities to ask questions, 4 minutes each. So would that be appropriate that we have a motion to receive the presentation?
Yes, that's appropriate.
All right. Can I get a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Utley. Can I have a mover to seconder on that? Councillor Martin. Any discussion? So, Councillor Carpenter, I assume you would like to take advantage of your first speaking opportunity here.
Thank you. So I'll continue. Nicole, my concern is one of the things was expense. Wasn't the expense, the developer is the one that does the expense? And I'm just sort of, and I want to say, second question to that is, this is all based upon growth numbers, and we're seeing in this community our growth numbers go up exponentially, far more than the province has suggested. And I believe the province's growth numbers for our community are low. So I don't know why we're not opening up as much land as we possibly can. That makes sense. And the developer is the one that pays for these costs. So I'm okay with the developer paying for that. I don't want us to pay for it anyways. And let competition be what competition is.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Carpenter. So I do want to add as well that just respect, you did note that we are governed by the growth plan numbers, and that is correct. So the land needs assessment methodology, which is prepared by the province, is very specific in that it's a methodology that determines our exact land needs based on future growth assumptions. And that number has determined that we need just under 500 hectares of community lands. If we were to add in, so essentially we have gone through an analysis that looks at several factors, and if we were to add in the C9 portion of lands, we would have to remove lands elsewhere within the community blocks. And from our evaluation, that block rated lower than some of the other blocks from an environmental and servicing perspective, as well as other perspectives as well. With respect to our community growing exponentially, I think it's important to consider that this is a long-term plan. This is looking at growth over a long period of time to 2051. However, once the document is approved, it is a living document. We are required to review it and to respond to changes in provincial policy, as well as changes to the growth forecast in the future. So we are already aware that the province will be looking at the growth forecast likely within a 5-year period. So we may have to consider future expansions to our settlement area as a result, and also taking into consideration the rate of growth within our community. So this isn't the final line. There may be opportunity or reason to expand that line over time and bring in additional lands. But as it stands right now, based on the forecast for which we are required to conform to, that's the amount of land that we need. And unfortunately, the C9 block rated lower than some of the other blocks.
Probably my time's up.
No, you've got another minute and a half.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Okay. So now this was a basic places of grow legislation. Is this the current provincial government is, they're more in favor of growth. They seem to be supporting more growth. So you're saying if we were to add C9 in here, we sent that to the province would take it out? Is that what you're suggesting? Or the province may leave it in? Is that not possible?
I think what I'm saying is that our background work through our lands needs assessment doesn't justify that we need that amount of land to accommodate the growth projections.
But council as a whole could move that as a resolution and add that in if they wish, could they not?
Yes, they could do that.
And would that be done here or done at council? I guess that could be done at council.
That would be done at council. We would find ourselves in a situation where our land needs assessment, as I said, we would be essentially bringing in more land within our settlement area than what would be justified through our background work and the provincial methodology.
That's the current provincial methodology by the current provincial government or the previous provincial government's methodology?
No, it's been updated to reflect changes to the growth plan, the most recent changes to the growth plan and the revised land needs methodology.
Okay, I'll be giving that some thought when it comes to committee. Thank you.
Did you want to a second go around, Councillor Carpenter?
No, I'll let others speak.
Okay. Anybody else? Straight. Okay. I saw Councillor Martin go first and then followed by Councillor Utley. So Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Through you to staff, the C9 block, would that be one of the first ones included in the next go round as the numbers continue to increase?
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Given that it's immediately adjacent to, should council propose or approve the settlement area as it is proposed now, given that the C9 block would be immediately adjacent to that current settlement area, yes, we would look to the C9 block and then other adjacent blocks as well.
Okay, and on a different issue, the Tootla Heights area, you say you're going to leave that as very low density. Is that appropriate with everything that's gone on, with everybody accusing us of urban sprawl with our adjustment and everything else that happened?
Overall, it's relatively lower density than what we'll be allowing in other places, but it will be some additional new development that is of a denser form than the large 2-acre lots that are there. Again, we do have the special residential subcategories that are going to ensure that the lands that are immediately adjacent to those estate lots are of a lower density. But again, it'll be focused in and around the existing low density area within Tootla Heights.
And the 2-acre lots out there now, well, are some of those of a nature that they could be divided in the future once they have municipal sewer services?
That will depend on the zoning and the minimum lot size that is allowed in that area. Certainly anyone would be able to make an application to subdivide those properties, but if the based on the policy framework that we've set out in the official plan and the existing zoning, that wouldn't necessarily be something that would be supported. Also keep in mind too that we were required through the growth plan and the provincial methodology to apply an intensification target, which the purpose of which is to limit sprawl. And we had proposed the alternative intensification target that council approved and was subsequently approved by the province. And that factors in the fact that we're dealing with that lower density area within Tootla Heights. So it has been addressed and considered by the province in terms of the overall growth management policy framework that we've established in the official plan.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Next, Councillor Utley, followed by Councillor Vanderstel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Nicole and Alan, for your excellent presentation. My question is much along the same lines as Councillor Carpenter is what happens, if the employment lands fill much quicker than we anticipate?
Well, we'll be monitoring growth within the city, both in the residential areas and in the employment areas. Certainly, if we recognize we're beginning to run out of land that's been designated for employment purposes, then that would give us some justification to conduct another land needs assessment, municipal comprehensive review, to determine where we should look to acquiring additional or putting additional land within the settlement area for employment land purposes. So again, the line's not set in stone and can't be adjusted until after 2051. I mean, that is the planning horizon for the plan and the growth forecast. But if we're, through our monitoring, seeing that development is happening at a quicker pace than that planning horizon, then we can certainly make adjustments through the periodic reviews that we undertake to look at the plan.
And that's possibly where C9 may kick in?
C9, other areas as well that haven't been included in the settlement area at this time. So you may recall Block C6 to the north of Jones Creek. There's other areas that, when it's time to consider if that we need to add more land, we'll have to evaluate all of them and determine which is the best to include. And it, how much will depend on, how much we've grown and what the new land needs assessment calculations are suggesting that we need to add. So again, all the land that hasn't been added will be considered. Again, there's the lands that are within the trigger area, the trigger lands. And again, those ones will be of a lesser priority if we're sticking to the whole trigger lands concept as it was set out in the Municipal Boundary Adjustment Agreement.
And Alan, a second question, Mr. Chair, is how does our plan fit with other provincial agencies? And I'll use the healthcare system and MTO as examples. Go transportation or train. How does our plan fit with their plans?
The official plan is circulated to a whole range of different ministries. We submit it to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs through what they call their one window process. So we don't have to send it to a bunch of different ministries. They will do that. So they will send it to, for example, the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Environment and Parks and Natural, a whole range of ministries. So those ministries provide comment to make sure that their interests are being addressed.
Do they provide comment, Alan, through municipal affairs or directly to the city?
Through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs.
Okay. And I would hope that they would communicate to us in turn.
Okay, Councillor Utley, we'll move on to Councillor Vanderstel. Oh, sorry, Mr. Hutchings, did you have something to add to that?
Just very quickly, Councillor Utley, in a local consideration, I know Alan's spoken to the ministries. We have worked very close with the hospital, Paul Moore and myself, and provided them data on our official plan on growth for their plans for increasing need for a larger hospital. So that was provided to the hospital and Dr. David McNeil.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Okay, Councillor Vanderstel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so the agricultural designation in Tutuila Heights area was necessary, Nicole, I guess, because there's quite a few farms out there. And the normal mechanism by which we would trigger a change in the zoning on those lands would be what we followed. It's simply an application that would come in. Is that correct? Somebody would apply to either sever or intensify or change the zoning on a piece of land with a proposed change, and it would come to council and we would decide at that point. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. There's no change in that standard process.
Okay, that's exactly what I thought. Thank you for that. Are there any encumbrances from the county of Brant in either situation, either south or north of the city, where we would have to determine a course of action, as would the county, or is it solely managed by the city of Brantford at this point?
Once approved, the lands that are within our settlement area, they would be solely up to the city of Brantford.
Okay, wonderful. Now, we currently have two people watching this meeting online, which is good. We normally didn't have any. Well, one of the questions that has come forward is how are we better managing our infrastructure and needs for schooling and traffic and whatnot, the infrastructure needs that are outstanding. Why should we even allow this growth to continue? Why should we not fight back against the province for more funding and less people? Have we ever made the effort to stop this Places to Grow legislation under any direction of any government's past, or is it something that we have just naturally accepted and said, okay, you know what, we'll just take more population? How have we interacted on that topic?
We are legally required to follow the Planning Act and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe that's issued under that act. So I don't know that we would have much success in terms of telling the province that we weren't going to follow it. We have provided comment to them when they issue proposed amendments to the plan, and they consider those, and sometimes they do make adjustments to their proposals that reflect the input that they've received from different municipalities. But again, the province has the full control here. The municipalities are creatures of the province, as you know.
That's what I expected your answer would be, Alan. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to make sure that we clarified for the viewing public right now. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question. Councillor Waller, do you have any questions before I? Okay. So I'd like to follow up on the questions that Councillor Carpenter was asking about that C9, and it's not clear to me what are the consequences if we decide to willy-nilly increase the area that is within what we call the triggery boundary. What happens? Like what are the consequences for us if we do that?
If we are to add any more land to the settlement area than what we've proposed in the updated draft, then really we should be looking to take some out in another location. Otherwise, we're going to be recommending an official plan or proposing an official plan to the province that exceeds the land needs that have been determined through the process that the province requires. Okay. So, if we could put them in and try, but I would think it's likely that the province would strike it out.
Yeah, I think we need to clearly understand that. So hopefully when it comes to us, either committee of the whole or the council, that because this will be an issue, and I think we'll need some clear indication. Maybe it'll come to us in camera as legal advice, I don't know, but some clear indication what consequences, if any, there are to us doing that. The question I have is, so to meet these density requirements of 55, I think, is it 55 for the new areas? I think it is, isn't it 55 to 60? Persons per hectare. Can you just confirm that for me?
Yes, the density requirements applied to the designated greenfield area. So that will be 55 residents and jobs per hectare within the existing DGA, and then 60 residents and jobs combined per hectare in the northern expansion lands.
Well, what does that look like? I mean, we have the vision right now. If we look to the north end of development that was done kind of under the 87 official plan, and there'd be a park, school, and pretty much single family residential with 40, 50-foot lots. I guess in the Southwest, we've seen kind of what more dense development looks like. These lands north of Power Line Road to meet these density requirements, are they going to look similar to what we see in the Southwest Schiller Lane area, or will it have to be even more intense?
I think for the most part, they'll be similar to the Southwest Shellard area. They will need a greater percentage of the townhouse form just in order to achieve the density. That's not to say that there's not going to be single detached dwellings in the northern expansion land. Certainly there will be, but again, it's just the ratio is going to be a little bit less than what we've typically had in the past. And then in addition to the townhouse built form, there'll be some mid-rise apartments expected to be developed along in the intensification corridor designation that's applied up in that area, as well as
So, Alan, how do you meet
corridor?
How do you meet the demand that's there no matter what for executive style homes? If we can't provide it, that goes to the county, and we lose out on the high-end property taxpayer. So, how do you deal with that? Do we just pretend that demand doesn't exist, or do we somehow try and accommodate it, or do we just let it go to what would be the more rural areas of this region?
Well, we can still have a full range of different types of lots for the full range of different types of housing. So again, there'll still be single detached dwellings. There could still be some relatively large lot single detached dwellings. The thing to keep in mind about the density targets that the province requires us to measure is that they're applied over the entire area. So it's not that each and every development application must be, a minimum of 60. The target's applied across the area. So there could be, some developments that exceed the 60 that perhaps, might include higher density type of built form like an apartment building. And then there might be some that come in at less than 60 because they're a bit more focused on singles in towns, for example. But again, it's overall by the year 2051, when we're measuring our density, it has to hit that 60. So it just points to the fact that, the planning department is really going to have to be tracking the density of development as it happens, as growth happens in the future, in order to ensure that on the balance, we're going to be able to achieve that density target. So again, it's not to say that each and every application must, hit that target. It's got to be within a range that will allow us to achieve it.
Okay. Thank you. I think I have my 4 minutes. Anybody for a second round of questions or comments? Got Councillor Utley, then Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. How long do we estimate it'll take for the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to approve our plan? That's part one. And part two is, do we have to wait until it's approved by MMA to implement parts of the plan?
The province has up to 120 days to make a decision on our official plan. And as I said, there are several options that they have. They can approve the plan in its entirety. They can approve it with modifications. They can send modifications back to us to address, or they can approve the plan as modified. So that's up to 120 days. It could come earlier than that. We do know from working with the province that we are going to be the first official plan coming forward under new provincial policy. And there's a lot of excitement around this plan at the provincial level, and that they have spoken to us with respect to their commitment to review our document. So I hope that answers your question. But really, once we send it to them, it is slightly out of our hands. And yes, we do have to wait for the plan to be approved in order to implement the plan. But that doesn't mean that we can't, begin working internally on some of our new processes, which we already are, and as well as meeting and working with the development community to some extent in the ways that we can.
Thanks, Nicole. Good answer.
Councillor Carpenter, you're up next.
Yes, so you've included Tootla Heights in this plan. Is Tootla Heights not difficult for servicing? And I'm trying to understand the rationale why C9 was left out and Tootla Heights was put in. And like even in the negotiations for the boundary, Tootla Heights was a 12th-hour submission that wasn't even expected or wasn't even on the agenda for negotiations, but came in at the last minute, which leads me to suspect, why would it even come in? Why would the county want to give it to us other than the city's expense on maintaining that bank that's giving away along Tootla Heights that we would now have the taxpayers pay for? But I'm trying to understand why we would promote growth in an area that has so much difficulty with the banks along the Grand River and so forth.
The bulk of Tootla Heights that is in the settlement area was already within the settlement area when it was part of Brant County. So we've only actually added a very small addition to that within Tootla Heights. So all of the land that isn't part of the trigger lands within Tootla Heights is in the settlement area, and most of that already was. It was they considered.
But when you say what? Sorry for interrupting, but when you say it already was, that's because the county put it in there. That doesn't mean that was a good decision. It means the county put it in their boundary lands as their growth area.
Right. The county had put it in. It was identified as a settlement area by the county, but when it became part of Brantford, it became part of Brantford's settlement area. So did we review that with the same rationale we did the other lands, the C9 lands, for example? We used the same rationale when we looked at that lands, or did we not? Or did we just accept it because it was part of the growth lands of the county? It was automatically part of the growth land for the city. It's automatically part of the growth, automatically part of the settlement area for the city. Again, there was just a tiny bit that wasn't part of the trigger lands that was added, and that tiny bit was evaluated along with the rest of the lands that we considered. Okay, so what you're telling me is that if we were to add C9 in, and I really don't like the word willy-nilly, it's next to development lands, but when you say that we add that in, what would we take out? Or you're saying we have to take it out? Province may accept it, or they may not, right? They may or may not, but we're required to follow the policies that they set for us. So it would depend on whether they don't want to follow their own policies to allow Brantford to allow more land to the settlement area. Then they're
one last
suggest we should.
Thanks, Alan. Just one more question to sort of clarify this for me then. So the C9 lands were the next group that would have made it in your evaluation. What was the one that was just before that made it in before the C9 lands were next on the list?
The blocks that were higher ranked than that included C6, which is the area north of Jones Creek between King George Road and Park Road. So that area, and then would be followed by C3 and C9 in the consideration. Those are the three blocks that basically have been left out of the settlement area that aren't also trigger lands. The trigger lands were the last priority, and we didn't consider those to the same level of assessment just because we knew based on the land needs that we didn't need to go there. Thank you. And just to the committee, those are my constituents in the C9 area, and they've asked me to raise this, and I work for them, so that's why I'm raising it.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Anybody else for a second go around? Yeah, my second go around. I'll just make one comment. And, you know, I fully appreciate the desire for landowners to be included. It monetizes the value of their property. But recall back, I just caution us that you start doing that, you're going to open the Pandora's box. And the Pandora's box, you recall what happened in April 2019. Remember, we had that big long session. We had a lot of developers, and we had a lot that north of Fairchild's Creek that wanted to be in. And we've heard that the other lands in Tatula Heights that are not in, that those landowners want them in. And you open the door to bringing lands in on the basis of we think they should be in, and we're ignoring the trigger line that's drawn by growth requirements we're subject to from the province. It's like, where do you stop? And my fear is we go too far. We don't have the province approving the official plan. The process for approval becomes complicated and delayed. And if there's anything we've heard, it is we need the official plan in place so that especially the employment lands can begin to develop. So just a cautionary warning. I think and that's why I've asked staff if when this comes to us that we be clearly laid out to us what the consequences would be. I think we need to know that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'd like to hear from the professionals just what the implications would be. So with that, anybody else? Oh, Councillor Wall.
Thank you. So I was at the public information session yesterday evening. I'm wondering if I could just ask staff how many people attended.
I think there were about 125 people who were viewing on YouTube, and 10 or 12 that attended through the Zoom.
Thank you. And I know that, you know, conversations about things like this, they never really come to an end. They just kind of continue ongoing. But I'm wondering what kind of strategy we have in place to communicate with the directly affected by this between now and when this comes back to council. Is there any more mail out or any other things through our media partners or through communications that's going to be sent out?
We have issued the notice for the meeting that'll be happening on the 19th, and depending on what decision is made there, we might need additional meetings. When the official plan is adopted by council, a notice is issued to advise that council has adopted an official plan and that it will be sent to the province for approval, and that individuals may submit comments to the province for the province to consider while they are deliberating on their approval.
When you say the 19th, you mean November 19th?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Is that a council meeting?
Committee of the whole.
On the 19th?
It's a special committee of the whole.
Okay.
For that purpose.
So then it's just, everybody knows how I am about just making sure the public is engaged as possible. If I wanted to make sure that we ramp things up between now and the 19th, is that something that could come from this committee?
Who are you putting that question to?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if that was directed to staff. In terms of communications, as Alan has indicated, we have sent out our notices. So that's the notice to the public there that council will be considering at the special committee of the whole community development meeting on the 19th. So notices for that have gone out. We have worked rather closely with our communications department throughout this process. And there is, media blast, social media happening as well. In addition to, our communications with our those that are interested in this project, we have ongoing daily communications with the public with respect to this project, and we've received questions online with respect to the documents that we've posted. We've provided responses to those questions either through the online format through our open house, or even just providing a response back. So we can continue to work with communications and to get the sort of the message out and the news out that this will be a special meeting of committee of the whole, and that they are the public is welcome to register as a delegate and speak and provide their comments at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so pretty much everybody's had a second go around, except Councillor Wall and Councillor Martin. So I don't see either one of you raising your hand for a second go around. So I'll call the vote then on the motion to receive. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. All right, so we'll move on to the consent items. I do need a mover and seconder on the minutes of our June 20th, moved by Councillor Vanderstel, seconded by Councillor Utley. Any comment, read the form and content? Not seeing any. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. So we have no resolutions, no notices of motion. Just in terms of our next meeting, my vision as your new chair would be, once we've dealt with the official plan process, which sounds like it may be about the end of January, that I would see after that the boundary task force would then meet, because the purpose of this was to make sure that we have the infrastructure plan for the boundary lands moving ahead kind of in tandem to what we're doing on the planning side. Mr. Hutchings, do you have anything else you want to add to that in terms of scheduling our future meetings?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we plan on the end of November as well, having this group convene. We want to bring you up to speed on the MCIN work regarding development charges for the area, that'll be coming forth December to the Finance Committee and as well as then the Council. So we want to have this group meet to talk about that, and there's much further work on that. So your timing is appropriate, Mr. Mayor.
No, it's not, because you're telling me we want to do it even faster, which I'm all on board with.
Yeah,
so you're forewarning us that we're going to be meeting again towards the end of the month.
Towards the end of the month, yes. And then we'll have a meeting on that and a couple others in the new year. And then obviously some other details regarding the official plan being approved by the province. So probably by mid next year, we won't need this committee, but there will be a number of key issues regarding the financing plan and obviously the official plan.
Yeah, that'll be a very significant meeting, to say the least. So look forward to that. With that, I'll call the meeting adjourned, and hope everybody has a great weekend. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, but I'd say this, as I'm saying now constantly, please stay safe. We are seeing a resurgence of the virus, and that means we have to I'll be very careful in terms of how we, who we interact with, and the using of the masks and washing hands, etc. We've become a bit complacent through the summer, I think all of us, and now we have to be more disciplined for the benefit of all. So with that, I'll call the